What's going on, guys? It's Greg here. You're watching part 2 of the Building a Get Home Bag series. And in this part, I'm going to talk to you guys about the core items that you should have inside of your Get Home bag or your survival bag. You know, these core items can be used in any situation to provide basic resources and tools that you need for, to provide food for yourself, to provide water, and to defend yourself. So here I just have my direct action dust pack, and I'll show you what I have inside. All right, these are the core items that every get home bag and every survival bag should have. I don't care what your bag is set up for. I don't care, I don't care how far away you're going to be, how long you're going, whatever the situation is. These items are critical. These items are critical. All right, so let's see what I got here is. All right, so here I got paracord. Now this could be used off of Dave Canterbury. Dave Canterbury has the 10 C's, but you can really simplify it down to 5 C's, which is my 5 C's, or really like 4 C's. It's cordage, cutting tool, combustion, canteen, and cover. So here we got all 5 of those criteria. We got cordage. This is cordage. I got combustion device, which is a ferro rod, cutting tool, which is a knife. I got my cover here, and then I got my canteen here. So I'm going to go into these one by one, and I'm going to explain to you why I chose these particular items and how I would use it. So basically, it'll start from the left. This is just 50 feet of olive drab paracord, 550 cord. I would recommend, if you're going to go lighter and you're going to go minimalist, I recommend 100 feet. I have 50 feet because I have other stuff in my... I also have a 100-foot hank. But if you're going to go minimalist, then just carry 100 feet, because you're going to use that extra feet to build, like, if you have to stitch yourself up, if you have to stitch up some, torn stuff on your gear, if you have to use these as shoelaces, if you have to make fishing line, so you want to have more. But if you have other types of stuff that fill those rolls, then you only need 50 feet, okay? But if you're going to go minimalist, then go 100 feet. Now paracord has multiple uses. I mean, it's just regular cordage. You can build shelters from it. You can build hammocks from it. You can even climb with it if it's a real life or death emergency. You can climb with it, but obviously that's not recommended. I don't recommend that. It's viewer discretion. Don't try that. But if you had to in an emergency, you could do that. You could use it to you could use it as shoelaces. If your shoelaces get messed up, you can cut the actual fiber. You can cut the sheath. You can cut the sheath off, and inside are the filaments. There's 8 of them, typically, depending on what kind of cord you have. They have different amount of filaments, but they vary in strength from, let's say, 50 pounds to 100 pounds for each filament. So you could use those little filaments for sewing stuff. If you tear something, you could use it to, stitch yourself if you had to. You could use it as fishing line. What else? Let's see, fishing line, stitching. Snares. You could use it as a snare. There's just so many uses for paracord and stuff. So cordage is critical. You could build a raft with this if you have to get across a large body of water. You can make weapons. If you have to make like a improvised weapon, and you could lash together a stone to a piece of wood, and you can make yourself a little club or hammer. You could lash your knife to a piece of wood and make a spear. So cordage is critical. So cordage. Then in here, you're going to want a stainless steel water bottle. This is just a Nalgene. I only have 1 liter. For my purposes, 1 liter is plenty. I live in the eastern U.S. There's waters everywhere. It rains all the time. There's groundwater. There's ponds. There's streams. There's snow. I'm really not worried about water, so I only carry 1 liter. This is actually closer to 40 ounces, so it's about 5 cups of water here. But the key is you want to have it to be stainless, and the reason you need the stainless steel is so you can boil in it, boil water in it, for purification, so you don't get, parasites and make yourself sick, because the last thing you want to do is, if you're in a survival situation and you ingest some type of a parasite like Giardia or Cryptosporidium or any of those other nasty ones, you're going to have diarrhea, and the diarrhea, and you're just not going to feel well, and it's going to be hard for you to do essential tasks that you need to survive. So you don't want to be sick in a survival situation. I also have a nesting cup, so it basically just, sits right under the, I can nest it on the bottom, or I can nest it over the top, whatever. This is this one is the Nalgene. I like the Nalgene bottle because it's flat on the bottom. It sits down on the ground, very sturdy. It's short, it has a low center of gravity. It's got like a ring under here where I can hang it if I wanted to, I can hang this. It has like a little ring around the base of the mouth, and I can hang it. So I recommend, this is a very good canteen. I highly recommend it. Then this is just the Ole Camp cup, stainless steel cup. I like it better than the GSI cup because it has the graduation stamped into it. So what happens is when you use these cups, they turn black. So if it has like laser etching or laser engraving, the carbon from using it may cover that up and you're not going to see it, but if it's stamped, you'll always see it. So I just have a nesting cup. This is not mandatory, but this is mandatory. So you're going to want some type of a container, stainless steel container that you can boil water in. So for me, it's this 40-ounce Nalgene cup, Nalgene container. And then I just have this, put it in this pouch here. I have some other accessories in this pouch in here. I have some water purification tablets. In this pouch here, I have some other stuff, but I'm not going to get into that now. So you got your cordage, your container for boiling and cooking. Then you got your cover. This is just a poncho. It's a poncho that can be doubled as a, I'm not going to take it out because it's kind of a pain in the butt to put it back in, but it has this nice camouflage. It's got these leaves, brown color, so it's good for multiple seasons. I like browns. I like brown colors, so it's good. And this is basically just a poncho, so it has multiple uses. I can use it, number one, as rain gear. I can throw it over me and throw it over my pack, and it's going to keep me dry. Number two, I can use this to gather water. What I can do is I can dig a hole in the ground, and then I could lay this into the hole, and when it rains, the water will fill up the hole, and I can just take my canteen or my cup and I can dip it into the hole, and I have water. So, and then also you can use this as a shelter if you want to make a shelter. Basically this has grommets in each corner, so I can tie it down to the ground. I can put I could make a stake from a piece of wood, from a stick. I can sharpen up a piece of wood and make a stake, and then I could use my cordage here, my paracord. I could run it through the grommets and tie it between two trees, and I can make myself a little lean-to, So you're going to want a poncho. Some guys like to use a tarp, but I like to use a poncho. So this covers the cover portion of the 5 C's. So you got cordage, container, and cover. And now we're going to move on to cutting tool, and combustion. So here is my cutting tool. This is a Benchmade 119, Benchmade 119 Arvensis. It's made of 154 cm stainless steel. When you buy yourself a knife for survival purposes, you want to have a high quality steel. This is a, like I said, it's Benchmade. See, Benchmade 119. See if I can focus the camera for you guys. It's going to be a little tough. Yeah, see, Benchmade, made in the USA. This is about a 6-inch blade. I did a review on this one on the channel. You can look up the review I did of this, an in-depth review. But basically it's 154 cm. Let's see, Siebert design, 154 cm. You don't need to get too caught up in brand names. I'm not really like a brand name guy. I don't really care. What I care the most about is the knife has to be full tang. You want the knife to be full tang, which means that, see how the knife, the blade is basically one solid piece of metal here, and the handle material is basically bolted onto it. So this is solid, This is one solid piece of metal going through here. It's got a little pommel on the back. I can use this to hammer stakes in the ground. If I want to hammer something, I can use this to punch out glass. I can even use this as a weapon. A lot of guys, they have knives, but they forget, because I study Filipino martial arts, and the big thing in Filipino martial arts is you use the back of sticks and the back of weapons as a striking tool. They call that the puño, Punyo, puño. And basically, not only can I stab, I can slash, but I can also use this as a weapon, so I can hammer someone's, eye with that. I can hammer their nose. I can hammer their cheekbone. I can hammer their throat. I can hammer their temple. I'm talking about a life or death situation where you have to use extreme force to protect yourself. I'm not talking about any kind of illegal stuff, So you're going to want some type of a high quality knife. This one, I recommend this knife. It's very good. You don't want the knife to be too big. In my opinion, a 5 to 6 inch blade is plenty. You don't need to really go bigger. If you go too small, you're going to be limited in terms of not just your self-defense capabilities, but also your cutting ability. Like with this knife, I can do some chopping because it's got some length, so I can chop. I could use it as like a small machete if I want to, chop things with it. I can chop. If I want to chop like a branch down, whatever. It's also a little bit longer, so it's better for self-defense. It's a little longer, so it has more reach. It has more cutting power. I think the 5 to 6 inches is plenty. I think that's the perfect length for a self-defense knife. Up to 7 inches. I wouldn't really go beyond 7 inches, and I wouldn't go below 4 or 5 inches. It's probably the smallest I would go. And like I said, you want a high quality steel. You don't want anything cheap. You want to have full tang, so that the metal should go straight through the handle. You want the metal to be thick. This is about 1/4 inch thick. I like to have my knives thick. Thicker is better, because in case I have to use this as a prying tool in a light, I know it's basically, it's almost like sacrilegious to use a knife as a prying tool. I would never imagine taking this fine blade and trying to pry something with it. But we're not talking about a weekend trip. We're talking about a life or death situation where I may have to use this to pry something. If I have to get into some area, if I have to pry open a door, if I have to, whatever I'm using this for a life or death situation, you want to be able to pry with it. You don't want it to snap, so you want that nice thick steel. This is almost a 1/4 inch thick, full tang, high quality steel, nice and thick. That's what you want in your knife. 5 to 6 inch blade. I wouldn't go smaller than 5 inches. I wouldn't go bigger than 7. I think 5 to 6 inches is a sweet spot for a blade, for a survival blade, multi-purpose survival blade. Like I said, because it's good for self-defense. It has a good balance, because once you get too long, when the blades are too long, the balance is not good. It's too far forward. And if the blade is too short, you're not going to get good reach. This is perfect for multiple uses, for chopping, for cutting. I can do finer tasks with it as well, because it's still small enough for me to do fine tasks. If I have to do some carving or skinning, and it's long enough where it's going to give me a good advantage in a knife fight if I have to use this to slash or whatever, stab, in a knife fight. And I recommend for steel, you're going to want to go at least 440C. I personally like 154 cm. I think 154 cm is a good balance of quality and cost. 154 cm is a high quality steel. It's considered one of the newer modern steels, but it's not, overly expensive. You're not going to pay like $300 for a 154 cm knife. This knife cost me about $180, which is really, it sounds like a lot of money, but you don't want to go cheap if you're talking about a real life survival situation. You want something that's going to last. You want something that's durable, you know, durable handle, full tang, high quality steel, you know, all that stuff, high quality, you know, you want the thickness there. So, you know, don't try to be too cheap, because if you go too cheap, you know, you're gonna, if you have to, God forbid, use your knife in a real situation and it falls apart or it breaks, you know, you're gonna be in trouble. And then finally, I got my combustion device here. It's just a ferro rod. Let's pull it out right here. It's just a ferro rod here. And I just have it's a 6" by 1/2" ferro rod. And I have it tied with some 550 cord, and I have a striker. You know, I like to have big ferro rods because, you know, you can use it. You know, this throws nice, the sparks, it throws big sparks. You know, that's what I like. The sparks are nice and big, you know, so, you know, you don't want to go cheap with the ferro rod. You know, I see guys with these tiny ferro rods that are like 2 inches long, and they're very thin. You know, get yourself a nice big ferro rod. This will last you a long time. You know, you could use this for months, and it's constantly going to give you a good spark, you know. And I prefer to get a striker. I ordered these strikers on eBay for like $5. I got 3 of them, and they have they have millimeters here, centimeters, which is good if you want to use it for map reading. If I want to, I can place this on a map and I can measure out my distances on a 1 by 50,000 map or 1 by 100,000 map or anything like that. It's going to give me my kilometers. And then I got a bottle opener here. I can also scrape it from this side. It has this 1/2" scraper here with little teeth, so I can use that. Or I could use the bottom side, which has this little burr on the bottom here. Let me see if I can zoom it in. It's got a little burr here on the bottom. The camera's not focusing. Hold on. Let me see. Just give it 1 sec. Oh, there we go. See the little burr here? Right there? The little burr, that burr, it helps when you're scraping it. It grabs the flint. It grabs the material and it scrapes it off better. And then you could also use this side. These scrapers, if you just go on eBay and you look up, you know, fire steel scraper, you know, you should be able to find these for like $5 for like 3 of them. You know, and it's nice steel. It's high quality steel. It's not going to break. And I just tied it with a piece of 550 cord. And like I said, get yourself a nice big ferro rod. This way you have it for a long time, and it throws off a bigger spark. You know, if you use those short and skinny ferro rods, it's not gonna give you a big enough spark, especially if you have to light wet tinder, or, you know, if it's a windy condition, you want to have a bigger ferro rod is better in this situation, because there's more material can be scraped off. It weighs a little more, but I'm not worried about it. You know, I'd rather have something that's good and I know I can rely on than try to cut, you know, save weight on like 5 ounces and it's going to be, you know, not functional at all. So just to summarize quickly, let's see, I got my paracord. This is my cordage, container, combustion, cutting tool, and cover. So those are the 5 C's. That's part of Dave Canterbury's. But, you know, even if you don't have to really be a rocket scientist to figure all these things out. You know, your cover, you're going to use that as a rain, you know, get yourself out of the elements. You can use it to collect water as well. Cutting tool, it's obvious. Combustion device, this is better than a lighter, because a lighter, it can break, you know, it's reliant on fuel. A nice big ferro rod, it's going to throw sparks out. So as long as you have something dry that can catch the sparks, you're going to be good to go with the ferro rod. And like I said, get yourself a big one. Don't go with these little cheap ones that are like 2 inches long and the really thin ones. It's not worth it. You know, you may save like half a pound or a quarter of a pound, but it's going to be much harder for you to get good sparks. You know, with this 6" by 1/2" ferro rod, I can throw huge sparks, and it's much easier for me to start a fire. I don't have to go crazy trying to, you know, get dry tinder and stuff. And then I got the container, which is good for boiling water. You know, really there's multiple uses for a container, but primarily for boiling water and for cooking. You can use it for other things though too. and then my cordage, which has 1,000 uses, cordage 1,000 uses. So these are your core items, and together these things here, with the knife is going to be on your waist. You always want to have your knife on your waist, on your belt. You don't want it to be like some guys, they like to use MOLLE and attach their knife to their backpack or anything. You don't really want to do that, because if you, God forbid, if you lose your backpack, or you're in a situation where you have to ditch your backpack, you have to eject your backpack and leave it for whatever reason. Let's say you become entangled in something. Let's say you become trapped. Let's say somebody's chasing you and you got to ditch the weight. Whatever the reason is, if you drop your pack, you're going to have no knife, and no combustion device. So you always want your knife to be on your waist. And this is a custom leather sheath I got on Etsy. If anybody's interested, you can write me a comment and I'll tell you the guy. His store is Custom Leather For You. If you look up on Etsy, it's Custom Leather For You. I forgot the guy's name. I think his name is Mike. He made me this sheath for my knife, and it's got a pouch here for my fire steel and my sharpening tool in here. He makes good stuff. It's Custom Leather For You on Etsy. So yeah, you always want to have your knife on your waist, on your belt. You don't want to mount it to your pack, so this way it's always with you. Container, this can go in your pack. Same thing with cordage. All these things together, minus the knife, because the knife is going to be on my waist. These three things together here, this is probably about 4 pounds, This is about 4 pounds right here. This is nothing. And this has all your basic items. From this, you can make traps for animals. You can boil water. You can stay out of the elements. You can gather water. And then you got your knife here. You can do a ton of things with that. Start fires, self-defense, hunting, whatever. So these are your core items. Every get-home bag and every survival bag should have these items. And together, this is not more than 5 pounds, It's really nothing. And then if you have your pack here, that's my dust pack, my direct action dust. Let's see, I'll move the camera up for you. My direct action dust here. This is a 2 pound pack with these three things here. This pack is only going to weigh 7 pounds, if that. And then my knife is going to be on my waist, so that's not even there. So these things alone will get me pretty far. You can go a long distance without food. The most important thing is water. Water is more important than food. You're going to need water before you need food. You can go a good amount of time without food. Especially if you're talking about a shorter term survival situation. If it's like a urban emergency where you have to escape from a city, or a short term. Let's say your car breaks down and you got to walk 5 or 10 miles. You're not going to need 10 pounds of food and 20 days of food rations or anything. You're just going to mainly need your water and your basic stuff. So in the next part, I'm going to go into more details. In the next few parts, I'm going to go into other things that you can add into your get-home bag that I think you should have. I'm going to go into like flashlights, first aid, self-defense, maintenance, hygiene. I'm going to go into the different categories of things that you should have in your get-home bag, and I'm going to break it down for you. So I hope this video was helpful for you, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.